Once you publish a book, you own a company. Whether you know it or not, whether you want to or not, you own a company. You're the CEO. You're also the marketing manager. You're also the sales manager. And your job of this company is to sell the book.
Welcome to the My Future Business Show, where we get you in front of your best audience and keep you there. Not only are we interviewing the biggest names in business to help you become even more successful, we're inviting you to book your spot on the show to help you grow your business. So at the end of the call, make sure you fill in the interview application form at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews.
Hello and welcome to the My Future Business Show. My name is Rick Nusky. I'm your host, and it's wonderful to be your host because I get to spend some time with incredibly talented people. And on today's show, I'm with the wonderful Hank Quense. Welcome to the show, Hank.
Hi, how you doing? It's good to be here, Rick.
Yes, absolutely. A pleasure to have you here. Now, I've been going through all of your bio information, and you're obviously a lecturer and author of many titles, including How to Self-Publish and Market a Book, along with many other titles which we'll talk about. We're going to be talking about the challenges with you associated with self-publishing and some of the strategies that you would use for getting the best results when promoting your latest book. Now, before we do any of that, Hank, I'd love to spend some time learning a little bit about you. So where are you today?
Well, today, I'm same place I've been for about 20 years. I'm in a little town called Westwood. It's in New Jersey. That's about 25 miles, northwest of Manhattan.
Now, you talk about Manhattan being the center of the galaxy.
Well, the people who live in Manhattan think that. Not everybody else does.
Now, I think for context, it's always fun and enlightening to share a little bit about, I guess, your life. I'm wondering, that's been home for you since an early childhood, or is that where you grew up?
I'm sorry, what?
Did you grow up in the same location?
I grew up, I was born and raised in Jersey City.
Fantastic.
Which is right across the river from Manhattan.
Fantastic.
So I've always been around Manhattan all my life.
What do you remember of your childhood? Do you have any fond memories you could share with us?
Of
growing up as a child?
Yeah, got a lot of them, yes. You know, a lot of high school stuff. Don't remember too much about grammar school.
Mm-hmm.
High school was fun. College wasn't. I enjoyed working until I took an early retirement package to be a writer.
Fantastic, yes. And you've been doing that for, what, over 12 years now?
Over 20 years.
Over 20 years, wow. And time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Now, I wonder, I'd love to learn, when you first picked up a book, what you thought. Can you remember, some of those early childhood book reading experiences, and what did they leave an impression on you?
Early childhood books? No, I don't remember any of them.
Do you have any that you would use for inspiration to write today?
Today, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Oh, that's a classic.
I was stunned when I read that, because all the science fiction I read up to that had been serious. And this suddenly, started to put humor in it, put a whole new slant on writing stuff.
Yeah.
The other book that influenced me was Catch-22.
Right.
The satire. That is probably the classic satire book, and one of it really affected me and how I write stories. I've tried several times to imitate the structure of the book, which is kind of unique. And Catch-22, it starts off as 90% humor and 10% horror. And in the middle, it's 50-50. And at the end of the book, it's 90 or 95% horror and very little humor. I thought the structure was very interesting, and it really mesmerizes the readers. So I thought that was really a work of genius.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. I wonder, do you like the transference from a written book into the movie format? And do you watch movies at all?
Yeah. Yeah, and then of course there's always Terry Pratchett and his books. And another one I really enjoy is Tom Holt, a British author who has the craziest plots I've ever read. I actually had to give up reading 2 of his books because I was completely lost. I had no idea what was going on with the plot. It was so involved and so convoluted. But generally, his books are very good. I really enjoy them.
So what can you tell us about structure? I mean, there'd be a lot of people on the call today, Hank, who'd be thinking about becoming a self-author and not actually have a clue about how to go about writing a book.
How to self-publish a book? That's a tough question. It's very complicated. It's complicated because you, the author, are the publisher. And I don't think I think people have trouble coming to grips with that they're the publisher and they have to do all the work a publisher would do if a publisher bought the book. Another complicating factor is the internet. So if you're about to, you think you're going to self-publish a book and you don't know anything about it, the first thing you do is you go on the internet and you start exploring and doing research. Well, there's a lot of good stuff on the internet, but there's also a lot of stuff that's not correct. It's some stuff is just flat out wrong.
Flat out wrong. Yep.
You got to sort through all of this nonsense and find out, what stuff do I believe, what stuff do I follow, and what stuff do I ignore. And another complicating factor is once you start to research, scammers find you. And they start to offer these great packages that will solve all your problems if you only give them enough money.
Funny that.
So that's some of the challenges that you face when you're trying to self-publish.
Now, when you're lecturing and talking about these similar topics, what are some of the common questions that you receive?
People are generally, generally the audience doesn't know a lot about self-publishing, so they don't have a lot of comments because they're too busy writing notes.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah, but then, it's all new to them.
Yeah. Now, I wonder, can you share with us, how long does it typically take for you to write? Do you find the writing experience to be thrilling, or is it difficult? Is it challenging? What is the experience like for you?
To write a novel?
Yes.
Is that what you said?
Yes.
Well, they're fun. I write nonfiction also. Nonfiction is more like work, but writing stories, fiction is fun.
Yeah.
Since I write sci-fi and fantasy, you don't have to do a lot of research. You just make it all up. And that's a lot of fun.
Now, do you ever have any editorial assistance from external people who profess to be good at editing?
I'm not sure. Can you repeat that question?
With editing, do you ever hire people externally to help you finish off a book once you've written it?
Yes, I have editors. That's mandatory in my mind. If you self-publish a book, or even if you're going to try and get a publisher, you need to have a professional editor look through the book and rip it apart.
Mm-hmm. And is there
I have a bunch of beta readers, of friends who will also rip it apart. So the only way you can improve the book is to have other readers or other writers tear it apart.
So you would suggest that people get those reviews before actually going to publish?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, and get it done. Get the beta readers done before you have it edited.
Yep.
Otherwise, you're gonna have to revise an edited copy, and you're gonna make more typos, and you have to have it edited a second time.
I know that there's a lot of software out there that claims to be able to help you self-publish on the likes of Amazon and all these other Barnes and Nobles and all those other things. Do you suggest that you get involved with the software that helps you actually distribute it?
Yes, I think you should. You should learn as much as possible. There's places to publish besides Amazon, but Amazon is the big gorilla.
Yeah.
If you want to sell books, you got to be on Amazon. It's good to have other sites, but you got to be on Amazon if you're serious about selling books.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I've seen your list of books. Now, out of how many have you written so far, do you think?
Well, there's a difference between how many I've written and how many are available to buy. But some of these books were not worth getting published. But I think I got about 25 books on Amazon right now, fiction and nonfiction.
And do you get the
I've
same?
been writing nonfiction for about the last 3 or 4 years. I haven't written a story in quite some time. I think it's just an evolution.
Is that where I guess the story writer becomes the teacher almost?
Yeah, I learned how to, I started writing short stories. That was my ticket of how I was going to learn to write fiction. Short stories and have them critiqued. So I sold about 40 or 45 short stories, and then one day one of my short stories became a novella. And I couldn't really figure that out how that happened, but it happened. I wrote another short story, and that was a longer novella. So I decided, well, that's the problem is my stories. I'm getting better at this, and my stories are getting more complex. The characters are becoming more rounded, and it requires more words. So I said, okay, I'm a novella writer. So I wrote a novella, except it turned out to be a novel. So just doing novels, and in writing groups that I was at, a physical writing group, I noticed a lot of people had trouble handling or difficulty coming up with concepts that I thought were quite easy.
Pretty basic.
So I wrote a book on creating stories to help them out. And I wrote another one on self-publishing. And that caught on. I just started writing nonfiction books. So that's where I've been up to now.
Yeah, wow. And you've gone ahead and you've created the ARC, the Writers ARC. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I'm sorry for
The Writers and Authors Resource Center, Writers ARC.
Yeah. Well, I wrote all these books. I've been lecturing for a long time, so I have a lot of stuff, sitting on my hard drive, especially I have all these nonfiction books. So I started to extract material from these books and from the lectures, and I put them up on this website called the Writers and Authors Resource Center for people to download. So that's some of the short things, like why you need a writing voice, or another one is a plan on how to write a novel, how to put it together. What do you do first? What do you do second?
Yeah.
This stuff on writing an emotional arc and writing humor. So I got all this stuff that I know about, and I made it available to other writers on this website. Also, there's a lot of self-publishing stuff and book marketing stuff on there also.
Yeah, there's certainly lots on there. I've had a look at it, and I'm sure that we'll share the URL for people to go and visit it at the end of the call, if we don't mind, Link. But
Yes.
when we consider your personal journey, I read somewhere in your information that it's not always, I guess, chocolates and roses when it comes to self-publishing. I'd love to share some of your failures so that those who are listening maybe can learn some things from those, so they don't have to make the same mistakes.
Some of my failures.
Yes, please.
You don't have enough time. But we'll try and plug ahead.
I love it.
Well,
because in those failures, there's got to be some gold.
yes, the thing with self-publishing is emphasis on the word self.
Yeah.
You're all alone. You're all alone. It's only maybe some friends can help out, but it's people you hire.
Yeah.
Mostly you got to spend money. And the other thing is, when you publish your book, the day it's published, thousands and thousands of other books will publish the same day.
Yes.
So no one knows about your book, and no one cares. So your job as a self-publisher is you got to start marketing the book, to tell people about the book and to get them to care enough to at least look at it and hopefully to buy it. So that's where the other aspect is marketing, book marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to tell you, writing a book does nothing to prepare you for book marketing.
Book marketing.
There's no similarity between the two events.
Yep. Yep.
So you learn how to write a book, and then you learn how to self-publish the book. Now you got to learn how to market the book.
Next stage.
Yeah, and that's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough because there are so many different things you can do, and there isn't any one thing that guarantees success. Actually, none of them guarantee success.
Yeah.
So you've got to try and figure out which is the one that works best for you. And it takes a lot of time, takes a lot of energy, and it can take a lot of money. And the thing is, you got to spend the money before you can get the royalties. Because if no one knows about your book, you're not going to get any money in royalties. So you have to do the marketing first in order to get the royalties later.
Yeah, yeah. So do you find that the strategies that you use nowadays are more effective than when you started book marketing?
No,
No?
no. I mostly have used social media as marketing. And after all this time, I really haven't expanded my reach. You know, there's a limited number of people that know about me.
Mm.
And no matter what I do with social media, it doesn't change the results. On a good month, maybe I sell about 8 books.
Right.
Not exactly bestseller numbers.
Mm.
So I've recently, about 2 months ago, I decided that social media marketing sucks and I'm not going to do it anymore.
Yeah, you're out of
I'm
it.
not going to spend money on it. So I've evolved into something called ecosystem marketing.
Right.
And a big part of that is my Writers and Authors Resource Center. Instead of trying to sell books, I'm going to give away stuff. And I hope that later on I'll be able to sell some big ticket items, you know, like mentoring and coaching courses.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing about ecosystem marketing is that nonfiction and fiction have 2 very different ways of going about it.
Mm-hmm.
With nonfiction, it's relatively easy. You can give away stuff, you know, like I have, you know, all the stuff that will help people with writing and publishing. Fiction is much difficult, and it helps if you have a series of
Yeah.
books.
Yeah.
Now, I have 3 series of books, and they're sci-fi and fantasy, and I've always said that they take place in a parallel universe. So the theme for my fiction ecosystem is alternate universe. And I'm going to have the 3 series up there. I'm going to put up stuff like short stories, character interviews, background for the world, all this stuff. And I will be attempting to sell book packages.
Right.
So, for instance, one series is Gondolin, is a fantasy land. So I'm going to sell a package of all 4 books at a price that's half the price of Amazon.
Right.
And that's the way I'm going to start doing it. I got the site started, but I haven't done anything with it yet.
It takes time, doesn't it?
I'm sorry?
It takes time, doesn't it? There's only so many hours in a day.
Yes.
Now,
I'm just about finished with the nonfiction, so I got time to get started on the fiction.
excellent, and the expectation is that we'll be able to share it with the audience. That's for sure and certain, Hank. Now, tell us about your author blueprint. What's that about? Is that part of this whole process?
I'm sorry, Rick, what was that again?
Your author blueprint, is that part of the same process? You've got an author blueprint that that you use, that you've talked about in your bio. Is that is that the way you structure your books? Is there some sort of a system to the way you write your book? You talked about writing in a story arc. Is it the same thing as that? Having a blueprint for writing?
It's not exactly a blueprint as much as it's a sequence of how I go about doing it. Mm-hmm. Writing a fiction book involves you got all of these elements that you have to deal with: characters, plots, you know, all of this stuff. And especially when you first start, it leads to a lot of confusion, and it's almost chaos for a while. You know, you figure doing stuff, and oh my God, I just did this. That doesn't work with what's going on in the plot. You know, and you got all bouncing back and forth, and it can get frustrating. So over time, I came up with a sequence of how I go about it. And my stories always start with the character.
Yep.
They don't have to start that way, but mine always do.
Yep.
So I get this character, and since it's sci-fi and fantasy, the character is usually a bit odd. And before I do anything, I give the character a big problem, the plot problem to solve.
Yep.
And I don't go any further until I get an ending, a solution to that plot problem. Nothing. I mean, this could take off and on for several months before I come up with a plot
Before it
problem.
comes up, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't do anything on that until I get that plot problem solved. Then I'll come up with an antagonist and maybe the other characters, and I'll come up with what is the full plot. How do I get from the story ending to the plot ending, the climax of the story? Figure out all those plot events. Once I get that, then I can really get started and figure out what's the character arc and what's the setting and what's the scenes. But I think this critical element is getting the plot ending. I got to know what the plot ending is.
Yeah.
And I'm working out all the other stuff. Actually, I get a little crazy about planning.
I can imagine.
Because before I start to write the first draft, I mind map the novel.
Oh, wow.
I write a mind map for the characters, have another one for the plot, and the third one actually ends up being a graphical synopsis. And it has every plot element broken down by act and by character. And I use that that's my map to write the first draft.
Yeah, wow.
That's what I use.
And that seems to me to be a part of that, I guess, that almost that blueprint idea that I was talking about before. You've got a plan and you implement it. But I wonder, having gone through this process myself, I struggled knowing when to stop. What was the scope of the book? Is that what your mind map helps you achieve?
Well, graphical synopsis does a couple things. First, it gives you control over what's going on, so you're not bouncing around, on the extraneous scenes that aren't necessary. And the other thing is it gives you continuity. I've noticed that if you don't have some way of ensuring continuity, so you start off with this character at the beginning, and he's a grumpy old man, and at the end of the book, he has to be still a grumpy old man. But sometimes in the middle of the book, the guy he mellows out because it just the way you write, you get more familiar with the character, and he starts to like the character, and he no longer is the grumpy old man, and you got a problem when you get to the end of the book. And this is very, very difficult to root out later on after you write the whole thing, first draft.
Yeah.
So the mind map allows you to control that and to keep that continuity going. When you start to write a scene with this grumpy old man, you look at the map and you say, okay, I got to get this guy grumpy. You got to keep him grumpy in this scene. And it works. It is a good system.
You've got to have that continuity.
If you're a pantser, then this doesn't work at all. Pastors, they just start writing it and have no idea where it's going, and they relish that. I have pastor friends who think I'm out of my mind for doing all of this planning stuff. They don't understand how I can do it. I don't understand how they ever write a story to get to the ending.
Without it, yeah. Now, I wonder, I've seen the artwork that you use for your covers. Who does your artwork for you?
I'm sorry, Rick, tell me again.
Who does your artwork for your covers? Do you have anyone in particular who does the covers for your books?
The covers, yes. All my covers are done by one guy out on the West Coast.
They're fantastic.
Gary Tenuta. He's amazing. I send him well, the nonfiction books, they're all the series, they all have similar covers.
Yep.
But the fiction books, I would think about a cover and I'd write down a paragraph. I said, I think this is what I want on the cover.
Yep.
And I'd send it to him. He sent me back something maybe a week later, and he nailed it. It's exactly what I wanted. The guy takes my words, a paragraph of words, and turns them into an image.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So tell me, I know that there's people, including myself, I think about how do you price a book? I know that you're changing your strategy to, I guess, the ecosystem marketing, but when you are selling a book, how do you know what price is right?
Can you rephrase that?
When you're pricing your book to sell, how much should you sell it for? How do you know what the dollar value should be?
Well, this is another.
How long's a piece of string?
If you're inexperienced and you finish a book and say, "Wow, this thing's a work of art," people should be willing to pay tons of money to read my book. Not really. You're not going to pay a ton of money because they don't
No.
know who you are. You're not a bestseller. So a lot of self-publishing authors, when they first start, they do research on Amazon and they see a similar book by a best-selling author, and the guy's selling an ebook for $12.99.
Yep.
Well, I'll say, oh, great, I'm going to sell my book for $12.99 also. Well, you can sell it for $12.99, but you're not going to get any royalties. No one's going
Yep.
to buy it.
Yep.
So you got to be realistic, and you got to price it at maybe $2.99 or $3.99 in order to get some sales.
Yep.
And once you become a best-selling author, then you can charge $12.99. But not when you first start out.
Yeah. Well, that's some sage advice, because a lot of people do seem to jump into the deep end with their pricing, don't they?
Yeah, the thing is, you gotta suppress your ego. You got to make business decisions, not ego-based decisions.
And you talk about business basics for authors. Is that something that you've written about or are writing about?
Yeah, I've written about that. I have a book, Business Basics for Authors, which I just revised last year. That has some stuff. You know, it basically says, once you publish a book, you own a company. Whether you know it or not, whether you want to or not, you own a company. You're the CEO. You're also the marketing manager. You're also the sales manager. And your job of this company is to sell the bloody book. And you have to make business decisions. You have to learn how to make business decisions. You know, you got to learn how to. You have to learn how to do tax forms, because selling a book is a taxable event.
Yep.
Every place in the world, every place in the galaxy, really. You sell a book, you got to pay taxes.
It's a fact, isn't it? You've got to treat
Yes.
it like a business.
Yes. An unexpected event. What do you mean I got to pay taxes?
Just a minor detail in all of this. So what are you writing at the moment? Are you underway with another book at the moment, Hank?
Yes, I have a couple projects that I don't know. Well, I talked about this ecosystem before. So I got an outline of something.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
not, it could turn out to be a book. It could turn out to be a series of articles. It could turn out to be a video class. It could be all of the above. I'm not sure. I'll figure that out after I write it.
Yeah. Fantastic.
And I got another book I'm writing. I got an outline. I got part of it done. It's called Successful Book Marketing.
Excellent.
And this is different than the other books. It has a different approach to my other books that have marketing. This one will have a chapter on ecosystem, as well as a chapter on social media marketing. Although I don't like it, many authors swear by social media marketing, and they're quite successful using it.
Yep.
So I'm not using it anymore, but other people use it. So
They
you
use it.
have
Yep.
just one more difficult decision that an author has to make.
Has to make, yeah. I love the fact that you're willing to change direction. Now, I know you've talked a little bit about the social media marketing. You've talked about all of the other things that you've tried. And it strikes me to ask you, what about audio versions of your books? Is that something you've considered?
Well, I read about all of this stuff. You know, the audio books are the greatest market, you know, growing like crazy. So I had one audio book made for one of my novels. Happened to be the most popular novel at the time. Well, nothing. I think I sold 7 audio books in about 5 years.
Wow. That's not a great result, is it?
No, I'm not doing another one.
Well, there you go. There's some more insights. I mean, some things work, some things don't, do they?
Audio books are extremely difficult to get done, and they're expensive. You got to hire an actor, is what it comes down to. You got to hire an actor, and they charge by the hour. They charge $50 to $75 an hour. Well, I'll tell you, the first time I got the audio back, the whole book, the first draft of it, and it is really startling. But what you got to do is listen to the tape
Yep.
while you read the book, And that is a startling, experience to listen to someone tell the story out loud while you're reading it at the same time.
Yes.
And then you say, "Oh my God, no, that's not what I wrote in the book." Then you
Yeah.
got to write down where it went wrong, the exact minute and second, and you collect all this stuff and send it back to the artist, and they fix it.
Yep. And they do their
You
bit
got to
of.
listen to the damn thing a second time.
That sounds like it's a lot of work for not much return. That's for sure and certain, Hank. Now,
Yeah.
I'm wondering. I know that you had one website, but in the information that I have access to, Hank, you've also got a new website which seems to have a lot of information on it. Could you share that with us?
One more time, Rick. Tell me one more time.
No, you had one website, and now you have a new website. Can you tell us about what's on the new website?
Oh, my one website is hankquense.org. That's been around for years. But I started another one, part of the ecosystem thing called Writers Arc, writersarc.com.
Yep.
And that's where all my stuff is, that I'm giving away to authors. And it's all on there. You can see the stuff, and it has a link that goes to like a back office called Gumroad site. You can download everything. And then the other one for fiction is going to be alt-universe.com. That'll be my fiction site. Well, eventually the hankquense.org site will disappear or become just a minor part.
Yep. So it's
It's a
all.
lot of work.
It's absolutely a lot of work, and having been involved with websites and book authoring and writing and publishing, it's just amazing the amount of content that you've been able to create. Do you ever sit there and go, "Wow, I've achieved so much with my writing"?
Yeah, well, I've been doing it a long time, stuff builds up over time.
It sure does, sure does. Look, if anybody's on the if you're on the call today and you've been listening in to us having a conversation about self-publishing, and I can tell you can't buy experience. You can only go through it yourself and become that published author and get out there and do all the hard yards to do what Hank has done. And if you want to learn more, I'll be providing the links back to Hank's websites, 1, 3, 2 or other. Not sure at the moment, are we, Hank? But either way, Hank, this has been one of those calls that I've really, really enjoyed, and I'd just like to say thank you for joining me on the show today.
Well, thank you. It's a fun way to start the morning.
Thanks for joining us today. If you enjoyed the call, then make sure to subscribe, leave a comment, share us with your friends, and book your spot on the show at myfuturebusiness.com/interviews. And if you're looking for solutions that will help grow your business, then visit myfuturebusiness.com/shop.